My name's Alex. I'm 28, and I used to be the kind of person who'd drop everything for family. I believed in sticking together, in showing up, in going the extra mile when someone you loved was struggling. That belief is what made me pay my younger brother Matt's rent for over a year. 14 months, to be exact. And this is the story of how that loyalty got thrown in my face. How he told me I wasn't family enough to be at his wedding, and how I finally snapped. It started out like most stories involving family drama do, with good intentions. Matt's 25, and honestly, he's always been kind of the golden child. The charming one, the funny one, the oh he just hasn't found his way kind of guy. Our parents have always had this soft spot for him. Meanwhile, I've always been the responsible one. The one with the steady job, the one who never got into trouble, the one who just quietly handled things. It didn't bother me much growing up. I figured that's just how families work. You find your role, and you stick with it. About a year and a half ago, Matt called me out of the blue. His voice was shaky, his words rushed. "Bro, I'm gonna get evicted." He said, "No hello, no how are you." He'd lost his job at a bar, again, and couldn't make rent. He said he'd applied to a bunch of places, that something would come through any day now. I sighed, but I agreed to help. I didn't even hesitate. That first time, I sent him the full amount. I told him to keep his head up, that things would get better. But things didn't get better. 1 month turned into 2, then 3. Every time I asked about his job search, he had an excuse. He didn't get a call back. The manager was a fool. The hours were bad. And every month, I kept paying. Some months he'd send me a few bucks back with a "thanks man," but most of the time, it was just silence. I kept track, $8.75 a month, every month, for 14 months. Over $12,000. I started noticing things, too. He never seemed to be that desperate. He'd post pictures on Instagram out drinking with his friends, at concerts, on little weekend trips with his girlfriend. When I asked about it, he'd laugh it off. "Chill, dude, I'm not blowing the rent money. Sarah paid for that trip." Or, "My buddy had free tickets." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe I wasn't being used. But in the pit of my stomach, a knot was forming. Then came the wedding news. He called me one night, buzzing with excitement. "Dude, I proposed to Sarah. We're getting married in the fall." "Wow, congrats," I said. And I meant it. "That's awesome. I'm happy for you guys." "Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. We're thinking of doing it at that vineyard out in Somerset. Real classy, you know." I chuckled. "That sounds expensive." He paused. "Yeah, well, Sarah's parents are helping out a lot. And we're keeping it kind of small." Something about the way he said that stuck with me. "Wait, small like, how small?" He hesitated again. "Like, immediate family and close friends." "I'm your brother," I said, half laughing. "I better be immediate family." He got quiet. Then, in the flattest voice I've ever heard him use, he said, "We were thinking, maybe just mom and dad. We don't want too many people. Sarah's got a big family, and, we want to keep it balanced." I blinked. "You're not inviting me?" "It's not like that," he said quickly. "It's just, Sarah wants to keep it tight. No offense, man, but we haven't really been close lately." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Not close. I've been paying your rent for over a year." "Yeah, and I appreciate that. But come on, Alex. You've always been kind of, I don't know. You just don't really vibe with Sarah. You're not, like, part of that side of my life." That side of his life? I sat there in silence, stunned. I couldn't even form a response. I told him I needed to think, and hung up. The days that followed were rough. I tried to tell myself he didn't mean it. That maybe he was just stressed, or Sarah was being pushy, or the guest list was tight. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't about space or budgets. This was about how little he actually valued me. I remembered all the times I covered for him growing up, all the times I lent him money, gave him advice, stood up for him. And this was how he repaid me? I called my parents. I needed to hear their take. "Maybe it's just a misunderstanding," my mom said, her voice gentle. "It's not," I said. "He flat out told me I'm not family enough." "Well," she said after a pause, "you know how Matt is. He doesn't think things through. Did you know he wasn't inviting me?" Another pause. Then, he mentioned something about it. He said you'd probably be too busy with work anyway. I felt the heat rise in my chest. "You didn't think to say anything to him? To stand up for me?" "We didn't want to interfere," Dad chimed in. "It's their wedding." I hung up feeling more alone than I had in years. A few days later, I got a text from Matt. No apology. No explanation. Just, hey, rent's due again. Can you send it over soon? Landlord's on my back. Something in me snapped. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied. No, he didn't respond right away. A few hours later, he sent, what do you mean no? You said you'd help until I was back on my feet. I wrote, that was before you told me I'm not really your family. He left me on read. Then, the next day, I got a long wall of text. Accusations. Guilt trips. He said I was abandoning him. That I was making things harder than they needed to be. That I was trying to ruin the happiest time of his life. That's when I remembered the car. 6 months ago, his beat-up old Civic finally gave out, and I'd let him borrow my spare, an older Toyota I didn't use much. I never officially signed it over, but I gave him the keys and told him to take care of it. So I drove over. When I pulled up outside his apartment, I saw the car parked on the curb, a little dirtier than I remembered, but still in one piece. I knocked on the door. He answered, eyes puffy like he hadn't slept. You here to talk like a grown-up? He said, arms crossed. No, I said. I'm here for my car. He scoffed. Are you serious? I'm serious. It's mine. You can walk. Come on, man, don't do this. You already did. As I walked past him to grab the spare keys and whatever documents I could find, he just stood there in disbelief. When I drove off, I glanced in the rearview mirror. He was standing on the sidewalk in socks, no jacket, watching me go. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because 3 days later, something happened that turned this already messy situation into a full-blown war. And it started with a voicemail. The voicemail came on a Thursday afternoon while I was at work, staring at spreadsheets and half listening to a meeting I didn't care about. I saw the notification pop up on my phone, one new voicemail from Matt. I debated whether to even bother listening, but curiosity got the better of me. I plugged in my headphones, stepped away from my desk, and hit play. His voice was different. Not angry, panicked. Alex, man, I messed up. I know you're mad. I get it. But Sarah kicked me out. She said I was too much stress before the wedding, that I had to get my stuff together or not bother coming back. I'm at mom and dad's, but they said I can't stay longer than a week. I'm really screwed, dude. Can we talk? I just stood there in the hallway of my office building, staring at the floor while his voice buzzed in my ear. So Sarah kicked him out. Interesting. The guy who thought I wasn't family enough to attend his wedding now had nowhere to go. The same guy who guilted me for not sending another $875 this month. The same guy who'd been living off my money while treating me like a backup plan, not a brother. That part of me, the old Alex, the one who always said yes, felt a flicker of sympathy. But another part of me was louder now. It had been building over the months, quiet and bitter and tired. That part said, he made his bed. Let him lie in it. I didn't call him back. Not right away. I needed time to think, to process what I was feeling. Anger, sure, but underneath that was something sharper. Betrayal. I'd spent over a year sacrificing little pieces of my own financial stability to keep him afloat. I'd kept believing he would turn a corner. And the moment his life got exciting, engagement, wedding planning, I became disposable. Not even worth a chair at the ceremony. And now I was supposed to step in again? Still, I didn't block him. I left that line of communication open, even if I wasn't sure why. 2 days later, I came home from work to find an envelope slid under my door. No stamp, no address, just my name in messy handwriting. I opened it slowly, expecting some kind of apology. What I got was a letter, written on notebook paper, torn from a spiral-bound journal. It started off calm. He said he was just trying to survive and that everything had gotten overwhelming. He said he'd never meant to hurt me, but then it veered off course. He wrote that I was acting like a martyr, that I was trying to make him grovel, and that if I didn't want to be part of his life, then fine, he didn't need me. That was the phrase that stuck. I don't need you. He signed it, Matt. That was the moment everything changed. I didn't even notice it at first, but as I reread the letter, I realized something. The car wasn't just about the money, and the rent payments weren't just about support. This was a pattern. He saw me as the fallback, the reliable one, the guy who would always say yes, even when disrespected. He burned every bridge in his own life, his job, his girlfriend, and now even our parents. And yet somehow, he still thought I owed him something. That weekend, I went over to mom and dad's. They weren't expecting me, but I needed to know what was really going on. When my mom opened the door, she looked nervous, like she already knew why I was there. Matt's not here, she said quickly. I didn't ask, I said. But I figured. He left that letter at my place. She looked uncomfortable. He told us about it. Did he also tell you what he told me? That I'm not family enough for his wedding? Her face dropped. I thought he was being dramatic. No, I said. He was being clear. We sat down in the living room, and I got the full story. Sarah had kicked him out after an argument over finances. Apparently, she had just found out how long he'd been unemployed. She'd assumed he was working part-time at least. When she found out I'd been footing his rent, and he'd been hiding it, she lost it. Said she couldn't marry someone who couldn't be honest or independent. I actually laughed when my mom told me. It wasn't funny, but the irony was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. So where is he now? I asked. Mom hesitated. He's been couch surfing. A few nights at Trevor's, one night at his old coworker's place. He asked if he could borrow the Toyota again. I raised an eyebrow. Seriously? I told him no, she said. That it was yours. He didn't take it well. Of course he didn't. She tried to appeal to my sympathy again. He's still your brother, Alex. Not when it's convenient, I said. Not when he needs a ride or a bailout. That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything. About who I'd become. I was the guy who paid the bills, who made things work, who tried to keep peace in a family that let me carry more than my share. But I wasn't the guy who stood up for himself. Not until now. Matt didn't call again. But the silence didn't last. A week before the wedding, I got a text from an unknown number. You happy now? You ruined everything. And then, less than 24 hours later, I got another voicemail, this time from Sarah. That's where things got even more interesting. Sarah's voice in the voicemail was tight, controlled, but simmering just beneath the surface was something else. Resentment? Embarrassment? It was hard to tell. I played it back twice just to be sure I wasn't imagining the tone. Hi, Alex. It's Sarah. I know this is awkward, but I think we need to talk. About Matt. I know you're upset, and honestly, I don't blame you. But he's really spiraling right now, and he's telling everyone that you've turned your back on him. That you're, quote, ruining his life on purpose. There was a pause. I could hear her take a breath. I just think maybe we should clear the air. I didn't know about everything he told you. I didn't know he said you weren't invited. That's not what I agreed to. That last line hit me. That's not what I agreed to. It was the first crack in the story Matt had fed me. For a while, I just sat with it. The voicemail, the chaos, the mounting lies. I didn't respond right away. I didn't want to get pulled into another sob story or be guilt-tripped into helping again. But after some time, my curiosity got the better of me, and I called her back. She answered almost instantly. Alex. Yeah, I listened to your message. There was an awkward pause. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I really am. I know things have gotten out of hand. I waited. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. I just wanted you to know, she went on, that I never said you shouldn't be invited. I didn't even know you weren't. When Matt showed me the guest list last month, your name wasn't on it, and when I asked why, he just said you wouldn't want to come. That you were busy, or not into weddings, or something. I laughed, dry and bitter. Yeah, he told me it was your decision. That you thought I didn't fit the vibe. Are you serious? She said. That's not even close to what I said. Honestly, Alex, I started to realize something wasn't right when I saw the way he talked about you. Like you were some bank account, not a brother. That stung. Not because it was untrue, but because it was so true. Sarah went on, sounding more and more frustrated. He never told me about the rent, either. Not until 2 weeks ago, when I was going through his stuff and found a bank alert about an overdue payment. I asked him what happened to the thousands I thought he was saving. That's when he told me, you had been covering everything. I thought he was going to turn things around, I said quietly. I thought he just needed time. I did too, she said. But he's been lying to both of us. The call ended on a strange, heavy note. Sarah didn't ask me to forgive him. She didn't even ask me to come to the wedding. She just wanted me to know that the version of the story Matt had been telling, how I had abandoned him, wasn't the only one out there anymore. The next few days were quiet. Unsettlingly so. Then came the rain. I'll never forget that day. It was a Saturday. The wedding was supposed to be the following weekend. I was running errands, driving back from a grocery store on the edge of town, when I passed this small strip mall with a bus stop out front. It was pouring, buckets of water, thunder rolling in the distance, and I spotted a figure sitting on the curb, soaked, head down. It was Matt. At first, I didn't believe it. I actually circled the parking lot twice just to be sure. But yeah, it was him. Same jacket, same ratty sneakers, duffel bag by his feet. He looked wrecked, pale, hunched over, like the rain had been falling on him for hours. I pulled over, just sat there in my car, staring through the windshield as the wipers swiped back and forth. My heart was hammering. I hadn't seen him face to face in weeks. I didn't even know where he was staying. And now here he was, shivering on a sidewalk like he didn't have a soul left in the world. I didn't get out right away. I just watched. He looked up once, not even seeing me. Then he stood up slowly and walked over to the bus stop bench and slumped against it. He looked defeated. But more than that, he looked alone. I thought about rolling down my window. I thought about calling out to him. But then I remembered all the times he'd lied. All the times he used me like a crutch. I thought about the letter. About, I don't need you. That's when it hit me. He wasn't sorry. He was desperate. There's a difference. I sat there in the car, watching my brother sit in the rain, and I waited. I wanted to see if he'd look around, if he'd even try to help himself, if he'd take out his phone, or call someone, or catch a bus. But he just sat there, letting the rain soak through his clothes, as if waiting for someone to come and save him. That's when I knew I wouldn't be that someone. I put the car in drive, but I didn't go home. Because there was something else I needed to do, something I should have done a long time ago. And that's where the real revenge began. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the courthouse. No, not for anything dramatic, just the DMV office inside. See, remember how the Toyota was still in my name? I hadn't transferred the title. I'd let Matt use it because I thought I was doing the right thing, but legally, it was still mine. And after everything he pulled, I didn't just want to take it back. I wanted to make sure he couldn't play victim again. So I filed for an official repossession and put a stop on the vehicle being used for anything tied to his name. No insurance, no registration renewals, nothing. I took care of all the paperwork, paid the small fee, and even notified the impound lot near his old apartment in case he tried to stash it there again. But that was just the start. I went back through all the bank statements and Venmo receipts. 14 months of rent. A few emergency expenses. Gas money here. Grocery money there. I wasn't just being generous. I was basically his lifeline. So I compiled it into a document, labeled every transfer, printed it, and sent copies to my parents and to Sarah. I didn't write anything dramatic. No guilt trips. Just a simple note, in case you ever wondered what not family enough looks like. The responses came fast. Sarah called me that night, voice shaky. Alex. I didn't know it was that much. You paid all that. I kept the receipts, I said. Matt's real good at forgetting things. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, there's not going to be a wedding. I didn't say I was surprised. I wasn't. He kept telling me people always let him down, she said softly. Turns out he was the one doing it all along. The next few days felt strangely peaceful, like I had finally exhaled after holding my breath for over a year. No calls from Matt. No manipulative texts. Just silence. Until the knock on my door. I opened it to find him standing there. Not soaked this time, not angry. Just tired. Worn out. I know you don't want to see me, he started, but I don't have anywhere else to go. I messed up. I get it. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, watching him shift his weight from foot to foot. I know I said stuff that hurt you. I was a fool. I was selfish. But you're my brother, Alex. We're supposed to look out for each other. I stared at him. For once, really looked. At the guy I used to play video games with growing up, who used to borrow my hoodies in high school, who always smiled like the world would catch him no matter how far he fell. You said I wasn't family enough, I finally said. Now you need me again, and suddenly I'm your brother? I didn't mean that. You know I didn't. No, I said. You did. You meant it because you believed it. Because you only see people as useful or not useful. That's not what family is. He blinked, eyes watering. So what now? I sighed. Now you grow up. And I shut the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't scream. Just a quiet, final close. I don't know where he went after that. Part of me still hopes he figured it out. Got a job. Found his own place. Learned what it feels like to stand on his own. But I'm done carrying him. And honestly, that's the most peace I've felt in years. Some people think cutting off family is cruel. But I've learned something the hard way. Being family doesn't entitle someone to break you over and over and call it love. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away and never look back.